Welcome in.
Welcome in.
Halfway through the podcast.
I think we're like halfway through the podcast right now.
Probably not.
Joined for the first time, hopefully not the last time.
Super special guest.
Our WWE correspondent, newly appointed WWE Wagon correspondent, Max Lasky. Thanks for joining us, Max.
Thank you both for having me. This is sweet. Big fan of the original, the first ever sports podcast.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I mean,
I'm glad somebody's saying it.
A lot of fans.
Some people forget, which is weird.
I know, because we've been around forever.
Forever.
I know.
Forever. I know. It's strange.
I know.
All right, so some WWE background for us. I just recently got into it, but I still don't know a lot. I'm still on the point where I'm learning about the history, and I'm kind of trying to follow what's currently going on. This one,
I couldn't name 3 wrestlers.
Okay, so that's where we're starting.
I couldn't name 3.
All right.
Yes, Max here actually got me into WWE, really the first person to put me on a little while ago when I used to work the security desk at Emerson College. You would come by and be like, just give me the 10-minute rundown of everything happening in WWE. But getting into it a little more. So yeah, I actually covered it a little at my at what I did in LA. It was very cool.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Very cool. Very cool.
Very nice.
Cool.
Yeah. So could we just do for me, and all other children that are listening, just give us a basic run through, my question is is it a week to week thing? Is there new events each week, in golf or tennis or something? There's a season, or is it just we're just wrestling? Are we just out here fighting? I don't know what's going on.
No. Yeah, so absolutely. So WWE is kind of set up as weekly episodic wrestling television. So there's Monday Night Raw,
Right.
which is a roster of wrestlers that are part of the WWE, and then there's Friday Night SmackDown, and that's a totally separate roster. But they're obviously a part of the same company. They're just 2 different rosters for 2 different shows, and they also have 2 different sets of champions. So for example, on Raw, the most important championship on Monday Night Raw is the World Heavyweight Championship, and the most important sought after championship on Friday Night SmackDown is the WWE Championship. And each week they sort of build towards their pay-per-view, or now they're rebranding some stuff. So now it's called a premium live event, which is just basically a way of saying pay-per-view in a cooler way, I guess.
Right.
And they'll build up to a pay-per-view that usually takes place either smack dab in the middle of the month, on a Saturday or Sunday. But it's an exciting time. Wrestling, I feel is in such I've been hearing the phrase in the wrestling community tossed around, the Renaissance era of wrestling, because so many people are getting into it. So many people are getting back into it. The amount of mainstream exposure that pro wrestling is getting right now is just insane. It's unprecedented. And so yeah, that's kind of I feel a good quick overview.
Yeah. I was gonna say, it seems impressive that I'm obviously out of the loop because I don't really watch any of it, but 10 years ago when we were 12 or whatever, it was the biggest thing on earth for everyone, and then it kind of seemed to dip a little bit, and now it's
all the way back,
taking over the world.
Yeah, is that accurate? Would you say? Because I would feel that way as well. Where it's when we were young, it was the greatest thing ever. Then it kind of last 10-ish years hasn't really been that huge.
Yeah, no, totally on point. I think it's important to mention that I don't think wrestling will ever be what it was even before I started watching at 4. I've been watching literally my whole life. And wrestling right now, I think, is in a really good position to succeed for this generation of people that are coming into watching it. But I don't think it could ever be as big or as popular as it was back in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. I mentioned the Renaissance era is what this era is being called, referred to. But then there's we go back to the late 90s. It's really the 90s is the Attitude Era. You got Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, people who you guys would know, even if you're not tapped into wrestling, because they're But then it's interesting, right? Because those names, but then I could name let's see, I can name Shane McMahon and Jeff Hardy, and like you might know one of them.
Yeah, no, I know both of them now.
Was Shane McMahon the "Here Comes the Money"? Was that him?
Yeah. It's his son, Vince McMahon's son.
Oh,
yeah,
sweet.
Who no longer is head of the company. What's interesting, again, and this seems to be a very positive thing, is Vince McMahon was the head forever, the guy, and then the scandals came out a few years ago. He resigns, and all of a sudden Triple H, who was one of the greatest superstars in WWE history, is now in charge of the whole thing, and he's been like killing it, right?
Okay.
Like absolutely
crushing it.
Yeah,
crushing it. Yeah. So a little more background, right? Like Vince owned the company forever, and all this stuff went down, and you know, for the sake of the pod, we won't get into it, but stuff went down.
Right.
Stuff went down, and they had to get him out, and Triple H, who's been around, you know, since the Attitude Era, so he knows what it's like to put on incredible shows week in and week out for full calendar years. He actually married Vince's daughter, Stephanie, and then as of just like a year and a half ago, he's now like, he's not the owner of the company.
Head of
now
creative.
TK, right? He's head of creative, so he's doing everything now, and that's why I think it's in this it's in a really good position to succeed, and that's why I think everyone's just trying to dive in.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, for sure. I think what's interesting is just like, you know, all of a sudden you have some names that are actually starting to get some traction. Like obviously Roman Reigns is a guy we've known for a while now, but then there's the Cody Rhodes aspect of it, which is like. So what are your thoughts on him? Because he seems to be the new guy.
Can I ask another stupid person question before we get into the real smart people stuff?
Yes.
I love it. Yeah.
They don't. It's not like a MMA fight card where it's like 1-on-1. They all just fight each other, right?
Sometimes
at the same time.
So there are different types of matchups. Okay. So like so MMA, it's like it's one type of match. It's 1-on-1. They're beating the hell out. Are we allowed to curse on this?
Yes,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Shit.
Yeah, they're beating the shit out of each other, and you know, that's kind of what you expect. With wrestling, there's like, I mean, probably over 100 different stipulations for matchups. There's 1-on-1, 2-on-2. Triple threat, which is like 1v1v1. Then there's like fatal 4-way, which is 1v1v1v1. And then there's like
the tag team
ladder
stuff.
Matches.
The ladder, so the cage and ladder stuff. That's the stuff you look back at the '90s and you see like what was his name? Cactus Jack.
You got it
right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's jumping off these like 30-foot cages just onto a table.
Scott.
I think that's actually where he got it from.
Oh.
And
probably
he like jumps off this 30-foot cage just onto like a folding table. And I'm like, what is going on here? This is insane. Undertaker doing that with like a broken leg or something in like the '90s.
Right.
Yeah. That's what's great. So that's just another type of match.
Totally. And I think like they're trying to slowly. I think they steered away from that for a few years because WWE was in this like
PG era, right?
Exactly. We're talking about eras. It's like there was this PG era where it's like, well.
And John Cena's at the head, like preaching like loyalty and respect. That was John Cena's whole thing. Quite the adjustment for the '90s.
Exactly. So and they're catering to like a totally different audience, which is more so like I always made the comparison to like Marvel. It's like, okay, who's going to see Marvel movies? It's like that's the audience they were catering to, the PG era.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but that means you're not going to get those like steel cage matches, blood all over the place.
Yeah.
And now
Steve Austin
like
crushing beers.
Yeah, flipping off the crowd like that. Yeah.
Exactly. You're not going to get any of that. But now they're starting to bring just a little bit back. You know, WWE's Monday Night Raw, their Monday show, is the longest weekly episodic television show in the history of the world.
Holy shit!
And
I would have guessed,
which is just
Family
insane.
Guy.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
And they're moving to Netflix next year. So people are like, well, if they're going to Netflix, they're getting off cable TV. Surely we're going to get edgier content, like that's a little more bloody and a little more.
I think they need one girl in the stands to pull her shirt up. That would bring wrestling back. Like the Oilers fan, get her to Monday Night Raw and just show her tits real quick.
It's tough because like it's crazy because like stuff like not quite that, but like almost stuff like that used to happen in the '90s. Like
that definitely happened in wrestling all the time.
Right, like but like they would like broadcast it. Like the stuff they would do back in the '90s is remarkable.
Dude, they were doing bra and panties matchups where like you have to pull you have to pull your opponent's bra and underwear off in order to
Okay.
win the match.
Let's go bring this.
Where can I find this so I don't see it? I don't want to watch this.
Why don't we go away from
I
this? This is
love
unbelievable.
wrestling.
Wow. Welcome to wrestling. It is a crazy history.
That's
What's
amazing.
cool about wrestling that I found that's kind of similar to basketball, and obviously wrestling it makes sense because it's all scripted, but it's like the eras are so clearly defined, kind of like basketball is, with like you have like the 90s, like the decades just kind of worked out the way they did in basketball history, where it's like you have that kind of with wrestling, which is a lot of fun. It's like the Attitude, then it's like Cena and The Rock, and then it's like Roman Reigns, and now it appears to be Cody Rhodes, and obviously you keep going back further, but very interesting the way they've set it up.
And it's almost like in wrestling, because I mean, yeah, to make your comparison to like the NBA, you could even do it with like baseball, really any sport. It's like I feel like there are players, in this case wrestlers, that like define the era.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, Attitude Era was Stone Cold, The Rock, Mick Foley. Then you move into the early 2000s to mid 2000s, which is Batista, Cena. It's called, that was like the ruthless aggression era.
Right.
And that was like Edge.
Yeah, Edge was crazy.
You know, Edge was sweet. Randy Orton, who's still, you know.
Oh, yeah.
He's still going, right? So Randy Orton's
still going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's a crazy person.
And now, he's nuts. And now Cody Rhodes, you know, with the Renaissance era, if that's what they're calling it. And I'm a fan. To get back to your original question, like, I think Cody Rhodes, his story is remarkable.
Yeah.
I could nerd out for like a second, obviously.
Go ahead.
Do it.
No, nerd out. Nerd out.
Yep.
If this doesn't make the cut, it's cool. But
No,
I think you'll find it interesting.
Yeah.
So, like, Cody Rhodes, I want to say in like 2012, he had been with WWE for like over...
Stardust?
Yeah, he was Stardust back in the day.
Yeah.
So, Cody Rhodes was with the WWE, I want to say for like 8 years, and then they released him, which they do often, you know. It's like, oh, why are... It's like with any sport, it's like, why are we paying someone if like we're not going to play them? And it's like, we're not giving Cody screen time, so why are we going to continue to pay him? So they released him.
Yep.
And he went to the Indies, which is like the independent wrestling scene, which for years had no like YouTube, TV exposure, just no media exposure. I mean, you could see them fighting in like my high school gymnasium. That's where you'd see these matches.
Right.
And so Cody Rhodes did that. And he went to the independents after being with WWE. So he's kind of like a known name going to kind of like the minor leagues.
Yeah.
Is the way I would, the analogy I would use. And then fought his way back and like rebuilt his image and like dyed his hair blonde. He used to be, you know, brown hair. He put a crazy, stupid looking tattoo on his neck, but it made it worked, you know? And he fought in Japan, which is like a big thing. A lot of wrestlers will go and fight in Japan, and it kind of teaches them a little more about the sport that they never knew. So long story short, he fights his way back in WWE just about 2 years ago now. They were like, oh, shit.
Maybe we got a guy.
Maybe we got something here because we see what you've been doing for the last, you know, because he was gone for like maybe 6 years he was gone.
Damn.
And we're like, we see what you've been doing. Like, can you do it here? And then sure enough, he did. And I mean, he's just been on fire, absolutely on fire.
And then you also have the wrinkle of his father used to wrestle in Lost.
Oh, yeah.
Lana's his mom.
Lana Rhodes, yes, is his mother. Nope, not true. Not true. Not correct. His father is Dusty Rhodes, who like used to fight like Ric Flair. Like that math doesn't overly add up to me. And his brother, did his brother die or did his father die? Like it was like a whole.
So his dad, Dusty, he passed
like early, right? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty early. Like he was still, I think he was in his 60s, and you know what's crazy is like, what's crazy is like you can look at a number of interviews. I'm sure there's a compilation somewhere, and it's like every wrestler will always find a way, like when talking about a mentor or someone that they really looked up to or someone that coached them, they'll always bring up Dusty. So like,
oh really?
He always had to live in his dad's shadow, not in a bad way, but in the sense where it's like, oh, you're Dusty's kid, so you got to go out and do something.
Right.
And you know, so I think that maybe put a little bit of a chip on his shoulder when he left, and it was like, all right, well, I got to get back here for my dad.
Right.
You know, his dad, this is crazy. His dad never won the WWE championship.
Right.
Shit.
He always
did.
lost to like
And
Ric
now
Flair,
he has
right?
Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
Right. The Buffalo Bills. And
Exactly.
that was why, so that was when a year ago at WrestleMania, not this one that just happened, but a year before that, this was Cody's first time on the title card, correct?
Yep.
And he ends up losing to Roman Reigns. And everyone's like, are we serious? Like, I thought we were going to do the thing with Cody Rhodes. I thought we were going to, and then
Dude, you've done your homework.
I'm back in. I've gotten in.
All right, so how far ahead do they like write this proverbial script?
Question.
Because like when all the fans were mad that he lost last year, were they like, well, next year's going to be the year, or did like he have to really work it up?
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
So from my understanding, and again, I hope one day like I'm working for the WWE.
Sounds
so like
good.
I would say you can take my word for it.
Like as a wrestler.
Well, I don't know. I'd have to start taking steroids, bulk up a little more.
You never won't rule anything out.
True.
Got to try it. I mean, maybe we'll see.
Right.
But what's interesting is, from my understanding, this is a work in progress. Do they have plans that they talk about months in advance? 1,000,000,000%. I would even argue that WrestleMania's main event for next year is probably already like not set in stone, but the plans are there. The conversations are happening. But what's the craziest part about wrestling, and I'll always say this, where you can't compare it to any other sport, is like the fans almost, in a sense, control what's happening.
Right.
Like, if the fans weren't behind Cody Rhodes, they would have never let him beat Roman Reigns and would have never let him win the WWE Championship. But the fans were just like so distraught, so passionate, so upset. You know, if like my Yankees lose, you know, in the World Series, I could be as passionate and upset as I want. It doesn't mean that they're going to win the next year.
Right.
It probably means they'll lose again the next year.
Probably, yes.
Easy. Okay. I've been waiting for a Yankees World Series championship since 2009. It's been rough.
You got a shot this year.
We'll see. We just. Oof.
Yeah, got right by the Dodgers. Right?
Coming into town this weekend.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. But yeah, so I think that what's really cool about wrestling is that while there are things planned months in advance, anything can change on the flip of a dime, because it's like, oh, the fans aren't really responding to this guy right now. Well, then maybe we shouldn't be pushing him to the audience. Maybe we should pull him back and maybe just change up the title scene a little bit.
Right.
You know.
To that point, I did a little research on how The Rock came up, because obviously just as a human, you know who The Rock is. But like, I was never a wrestling fan, so I knew he was a wrestler, but I didn't know what that meant. And you always kind of view The Rock as like, all right, he's this massive movie star, huge dude, but like he's kind of corny. Like that's kind of the vibe you get from The Rock. In the last couple of years, it's like, all right, he's not that like cool. Like you don't think Rock, you think cool. You think like, yeah, he's this big thing. His movies are fine sometimes. You know what I mean? But then you go back and you realize why he got so famous was because he was like awesome. Like 20 years ago now, like getting on the mic and just like cussing people out and just destroying people on the mic. I'm like, oh my god, this makes sense. Okay, now I understand why this guy became such a big star, because his mic skills.
Hollywood.
Right, exactly. But his mic skills just became like, you see him and it's like, oh, I don't know if any wrestler's been that good on the mic ever. You know, it's great, just doing it just off the rip, crazy.
And that's also like, just to compare it to other sports, is like, you know, Aaron Judge could be the best player on the Yankees, but he doesn't then have to be the best talker in the game.
Right.
Whereas like in wrestling, you have to talk just as well as you can wrestle, and wrestle just as well as you can talk.
Right.
That's the game.
What percent do you think, like, if I was like wanting to be a wrestler, like obviously I'd have to be shredded and know how to wrestle and do all these backflips and shit and have the endurance, but like what percent do I need to be entertaining versus being able to jump through a table? Like, is it more entertainment, you think, or more like actually skillful wrestling, or is it like a 50-50?
I would say from a viewer, from obviously like no wrestling experience, I'd say it's 50-50, because if you can't win over the audience, this I know for sure. If you can't win over the audience, period, like you're not going to work. You're just not going to get screen time. You're not going to get TV time. And that's also why it's like the fans kind of control what's happening. So like, I could think that I'm one of the most entertaining people around, but like, if the fans don't think so, then I'm probably fucked. And what's crazy too is like the wrestlers, they don't care if these fans are booing the shit out of them,
Right, the heel.
As
Or
long as they
cheering
get clicks.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
As long as they're getting the reaction, that's all they care about. If they're silent, then they're fucked.
Right. That was The Rock's whole thing. Is like he had that. He went to was it Toronto, and he just went and just made fun of Canada for like 30 minutes on the mic, and everyone was like, "I hate you."
Should have been easy.
And it was awesome. Right. Exactly. That was really cool. That is very cool to learn about. I think I want to touch on this sort of the John Cena like just wrinkle, I guess, that I've found in my research is like he's just such an interesting character, and I think we see this with athletes a lot too. Like we see Tom Brady now, where it's like, yeah, right, that's the one. Tom Brady now, it's like we were growing up in New England, and everybody hated Tom Brady. Now all of a sudden, obviously the roasting happened, but like it's not how it is anymore. Like Cena comes up right after the Attitude Era, and he's like, I'm the best guy ever, like hustle loyalty, like, and he actually was a great dude doing all these like Make-A-Wish things and all that. The exact opposite of Steve Austin and The Rock and Undertaker, and everyone like hated him. But now you look, he shows up at WrestleMania, and everyone's like, oh my God, this is the guy, this is my guy. So do you think there's a bit of like our generation is now getting older because we grew up with him, and he's like, no, Cena, like he's our guy, you know what I mean? So we love him. Like, would that be an accurate depiction?
Totally. Like I think there was a great wrestler back in the late '90s, and then pretty much the whole 2000s. Kurt Angle.
Mm-hmm. The former Olympian.
He was former Olympian. One of the I'm seriously impressed with the homework.
Let's go.
Yeah, both of us.
Kurt Angle. For starters, he had a great match. I think it was like WrestleMania 21. Him versus Shawn Michaels. If you want a match to like get you into what wrestling is, like honestly, watch Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 21. Like that is just fantastic. But anyways, Kurt Angle. The reason I bring him up is because Kurt Angle was like the same. Like he kind of has the same thing as Cena. He came up, and everyone's like, oh, who is this guy? And then they cheered him. And then there got to a point where it was like, all right, we love you, but like, why are we starting to hate you? Are we starting to hate you because you're just so damn good and entertaining? Like maybe. And that's what happened. Mm-hmm. He was getting booed on a week-to-week basis, and it's literally the exact same that happened to Cena. Is like Cena came up, everyone's like, who is this guy? Why is he talking about hustle, loyalty, and respect? Mm-hmm. Total badass, but like he's a badass, but like preaching like respect.
Yeah.
And then after a point, like sort of I'd say like around 2014, 2015. I mean, we just started booing the guy. Mm-hmm. We were like, oh my God, Cena again? But it's like, we love him. So to answer your question, I think it's sort of like, we know his time is up, and I think that us, original Cena stans are like, anytime we get him, anytime, in any form, in any capacity, we're hyped. Yeah. And we're hyped to see him because he's our guy. We know that like the kids watching today, they might just have heard of Cena because he's got like the cool gimmick and like the the you can't see me, and he's kind of like this meme now.
Right.
But he's our guy, and you gotta love him.
True. All right, quick. We're getting out of time here. I just got one last question, then we'll talk in the future. I mean, that's
what I want to talk about.
Yeah, who's this guy?
So I was gonna ask you like I just need someone to root for. If I'm like watching any sport, I need a guy, kind of like an underdog. And so I was looking through the Superstars page, and I think this guy's on the NXT. Is that what it's called?
Circuit, yeah, NXT.
NXT circuit.
Yeah.
His name's Brooks Jensen. I don't know if he's popular at all.
Yeah.
He looks like if like Inigo Montoya from Princess Bride decided to like weightlift instead of fence his whole life. He's awesome.
That's great. That is a crazy comparison.
It looks pretty sweet.
Yeah, Brooks. So NXT, I'll fill you in. So like NXT is still a WWE
property
TV show.
Right.
It's their. Yeah. Sorry. NXT takes place on Tuesday nights.
Okay.
It's sort of like their farm system, if you will.
Okay.
And guys and girls can get called up from NXT to the main roster.
Yep.
They can get sent down if they, maybe if they need a little more help, screen time wise, wrestling wise. And Brooks Jensen, though, dude's a fucking beast. Dude is an absolute beast. Brooks Jensen is one of the dogs right now on NXT.
Wagon alert.
I would definitely, he's one to root for. There's another great guy in NXT right now, and he is the champion right now, but yeah, I mean, he's just a fucking dog. His name's Trick Williams, and he's got this insane theme music when he comes out. Everyone's just going like, "Whoop that Trick!"
That's
Okay,
that's
It's
cool.
just like
I got
everyone's
myself a guy.
bopping. It's a cool vibe.
That's pretty
It's a
cool.
vibe,
That's
so.
pretty fun. That's pretty fun. All right. I mean, 25 minutes in. You think I can get in another question before I have him shield me on the future?
What?
Worst case, we just have this. Okay,
Yeah,
one quick. Not a lot of time on this, and then we'll
Yeah.
go future real quick. How
Sure.
how huge has The Rock coming back been in the last year for WWE? Not only him performing, but also him, because I know he's now in the front office, basically, right? So
Right.
how huge has that been? Do you think he's been overrated? Do you think he's been a bit of a pain, or do you think it's been like a great thing for the WWE?
In the shortest way possible, I think it has been excellent for WWE to have a guy who some of their audience might not know as a wrestler. Obviously, like we spoke about, you know him as The Rock,
Right.
but you know him as The Rock from WWE. And I think that for that, he's been great because we all know him and love him. But now this whole next generation of people got to see him for like 3 months
Yeah.
leading up to WrestleMania.
Yep.
He's coming out on TV, roasting the shit out of everybody. And like, it felt like, you know, the 90s again. It felt like the Attitude Era for a second. And I just thought it was excellent. And I hope he comes back around either this summer, because there were rumors, rumblings, he might come around for SummerSlam, or next year at WrestleMania 41, which I think is in Vegas.
I think it is
This
too,
year.
yes. I'm
Yeah.
pretty positive it's in Vegas. Okay, so off that note, last thing, 60-ish seconds. Give me your why I should keep watching the WWE in 2024 and beyond. What's going on this summer, next, whatever, what's going on? I know you mentioned something about a castle.
Other than Brooks Jensen.
Yes, the castle. Other than Brooks Jensen, I think you should keep watching WWE right now because it is what a time to be a wrestling fan. It is so unpredictable in a sport that's very scripted, that's very, you can kind of follow the way that the show is going to go. It's very unpredictable. We're seeing people show up from other companies. We're seeing people who, like CM Punk,
Right.
left the company for 10 years, comes back. I mean, that's huge. And there's just a lot of good stuff happening in wrestling right now. The storylines are great. The players are great. And yeah, Clash at the Castle is going to be in Scotland. And Drew McIntyre is going to hopefully win the World Heavyweight Championship in his hometown of Glasgow.
That'll be cool. That'll be awesome.
And that would be just
Yeah.
epic. So for those reasons alone, you should definitely keep watching because it's the most unpredictable thing that's predictable out there right now.
That's awesome.
I think it's fun.
That would be sweet. I wonder if they'll bring in any fun other guests, like how they in
Right.
Philadelphia they brought in
Like the Kelce's.
Kelsey. Maybe they'll bring in like Shane Lowry.
Maybe.
Or something.
The golfer. Maybe.
That'd be sick. Be sick. Don't be surprised because WWE is super mainstream right now,
Yeah.
and they're just trying to do everything to get more and more and more eyeballs on the content.
Yeah.
And I think they're doing a good job at that.
Sweet. Well, we did our part today. That's all the time we got.
Yeah, we did.
That is all the time we got. Max, thank you so much for joining us. This was phenomenal. Learned so much today.
Yeah, absolutely. New fan in the seat.
Yeah, welcome to
Awesome.
two new wrestling fans. So we'll do it again sometime. Thank you so much for joining us.
Definitely. Thank you both for having me. Appreciate you boys.
Right on. Fuck the Yankees.
Hell yeah.
Oh, whoa.
Whoa, whoa, whoa.